How fast can a human walk? Very fast compared to sand dunes. Very slowly compared to the maximum speed allowed by the laws of nature. How long do humans naturally live? Rather long compared to the smallest unit of time. Rather short compared to the cosmos. How much can a human suffer? Presumably quite a lot compared to bacteria and flies. But even the pain of burning to death is probably nowhere close to peak suffering per 1300 cubic centimeters. Our ancestors evolved to be only happy sometimes, but not always. We humans evolved to walk at just the right speed. Similarly, we evolved to suffer just the right amount. Today, we can engineer vehicles that allow us to travel at greater speeds than evolution had in mind for us. And even though we don't really know yet how consciousness works, it seems plausible that we will eventually be able to engineer artificial minds that are capable of suffering orders of magnitude more than humans. So, you think that non-biological entities can be conscious? Isn't that a bit, crazy? I don't think so. Consciousness is ultimately physical. Without a physical brain, you experience nothing. And for what it's worth, not much. Nowadays, most philosophers, I think, agree that AI can in theory be conscious. This has been debated for decades, so it's not going to be solved in a YouTube video, but here's a thought experiment proposed by David Chalmers. Suppose that your neurons are replaced, one by one, by computer chips. Each chip performs precisely the same function as a neuron. Tiny transducers take in electrical signals and chemical ions and transform these into a digital signal. There will be no functional difference between the robot and you. Given that you are conscious and the robot is not, what is it like to be in between? Since the intermediary system is functionally equivalent to you, it will, of course, also say all the same things. If consciousness fades, then when you're experiencing noise, perhaps it's only hearing a distant rumble. And yet it would complain about the noise. In fact, they'd claim to have all kinds of perceptions. So, do you think you would complain about noise you didn't perceive? Unless you're my downstairs neighbor, that just seems implausible. Now, if you still think that consciousness connects us with the higher spiritual center of the universe, or whatever it is these people claim, I think you're a bit wrong about that. Consciousness isn't magic, and neither are neurons. Machines can be conscious given the right circumstances. But why is that worrying? We can barely speculate what the people of the future might be up to, but chances are they're going to use computation, and a lot of it. Some or all of these processes might be conscious, and given our laws of nature, maybe they even have to be. Now, have you ever noticed that despite your best efforts, it's really hard to be happy and comparatively easy to be unhappy? Ultimately, if it's any consolation, that's because there are way more ways for things to be wrong than for them to be just sort of okay, let alone good. The same might apply to artificial minds. The number of possible suffering beings might be incredible orders of magnitude greater than the number of possible happy beings. If that's the case, the most widely used processes might just happen to suffer. And they might even suffer a lot. Maybe, 18 orders of magnitude more than humans? What might that be like? Just try to imagine what it's like to have your skin burned off. Imagine that lasting for 30 billion years. Longer than the universe has even existed. Yet, if it's truly 18 orders of magnitude worse, you'd prefer 30 billion years of torture over just 1 second of this. But after 1 second, it's not going to stop. It might well go on for practically eternity. And it could be a lot worse than even that. Maybe you think future people wouldn't be so barbaric, but if history is any guide, you'd be wrong. Humanity got rid of slavery, and that's moral progress for sure. But how convenient that it happened at precisely that point in history, when the underlying economics dictated that slavery is no longer profitable. Factory farming might be the worst thing we're doing right now. Disclaimer, I'm no vegetarian, but over 50 billion animals are mistreated horribly and killed every year. And that's the worst part. Not because people are evil. Almost everybody would prefer their meat to be cruelty-free. The cheapest method of producing meat at this point in time just so happens to be very painful. Animal rights activists can stomp their feet all they like. With the increasing demand from China, animal suffering is only going to increase in the near future. Ethical considerations be damned. Why would it be any different for future artificial minds? So, how bad can it get? Well, humanity will eventually spread into other galaxies. And even if we don't, the universe is young. Someone or something eventually will. If the process that's most efficient at propagating itself by sheer chance happens to suffer, the entire universe might ultimately be transformed into suffering matter. Always on. Always suffering.